Ooh, that looks tasty. Folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview, and today we're talking about Weirdwood Manor, designed by Mike Cassie. And I do apologize if I mispronounced that name. Now, before I get started, please make sure you turn your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you will find the corrections. Now, what this game is in this world, there is Weirdwood Manor, which is represented by this board here, and that is controlled by Lady Weirdwood right there in the middle. And this world is kind of at the nexus between the Fae world and our world, and evil Fae are constantly creeping in, and so the Lady Weirdwood and her sentinels are constantly battling to keep the evil from getting out. And you're going to be doing that through a action selection, level up, character building, crisis management style game. What I mean by crisis management is pandemic style game. But crisis management where you're trying to keep the problems from getting out of hand until you can take care of the problem, which is going to be whatever big boss there is. In this case, I have the Chaos Ogre out on the board. And obviously these are actually standees, but standees don't look very good from the top down. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and so want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. So what's going to happen is each player, and I'm going to move the whole board just a little bit, like so I can place a player board out here for us to see. And I've zoomed in a bit here just so we can see this right up at the top. And these are 4 different places where you're going to be able to place cards. And you're going to have a number of cards in your hand going to be equal to your health, which starts the game at 3. And what will happen is you're going to be placing these cards in these spots. But when you place the card in the spot, it's going to take up time. So we start the game right here in the morning on the first day. And if I were to take the Shadow Steps card here, and let's say I placed it in the noon spot here, right there, I would have to rotate this all the way over to one of the noon spots, and I could pick where. So obviously the first turn of the game, you don't really want to do that. But if I were to put it over here, then I would just have to rotate at least one spot, like so. And then I could take my turn, which I'm all the way over here, and then I can move through the pathways. And as you can see, there are little walls and paths here, and I can move because I played this Shadow Step card that lets me move and activate 2 rooms. And so I can move and I can go into any room that I want. And I can move in, I just have to follow the path, and I could go there. Oh, but there's a wall there, so I can't go there. But maybe I come around here, I go through there, couldn't go through there, and so on and so on. Go all around the board as far as you want. Then when you get to a spot, you can activate that room. So if I were to come right here, I could discard 1 card and gain 3 men. And each of the different tiles on the board does something different. Now, you'll also notice there's these scarabs here. If there's a scarab there, it not only stops you from moving, you get stuck there when you get there, but you have to defeat it before you can claim the ability, and you can do that with various other cards, like this one right here gives me a defense and lets me do an attack, so I could attempt to defeat that scarab right there. You'll also notice that Lady Weirdwood is here in the middle, all surrounded by scarabs. If at any time you battle your way into that spot, and you defeat all of these scarabs, then you'll be able to activate her, and each different bad guy that you're facing has different rules for how she activates, but in general, if she's there in a room with you when you're fighting, she actually gives you bonuses. And so now's a good time to talk about how combat works. So I'm going to just make a huge mess right here and slide things around, but that's okay. And now you can see what we have here. I have my health, which is a 3, which means I get 3 cards, and Oliver Griffin starts with 1 blue die in combat. But you'll see there's these symbols here, and that tells you how much it costs to upgrade your dice. You get to upgrade your dice at various rooms. For example, right over here, if you come in and activate this room, again, you have to make sure you have a path to get there. You get to upgrade 1 die, and you get a min or a knowledge. And then when you do that, you then get to choose what color die. So perhaps I want to put that there. And now, if I go into combat, I get a blue die and a red die. Red dice are very offensive. Blue dice have defense, offense, and a burst, which is different for every single character and bad guy, or a black die, which is all defense. Then when you go into combat, if you're fighting a scarab, they simply get 1 blue die. And so I would roll the Scarab, which has 1 defense, and then I would roll mine, which is a defense, which does nothing but 2 attack, so I would beat the Scarab. And then I would have a choice. I can either simply discard the Scarab and gain 2 XP, which I use down here. And as you go up these tracks, you get bonuses depending on what you go over. You might hit that, which allows you to activate these powers, get resources, permanent extra hits in combat, or you might gain these fun little cards here, which you can place out on top of your cards, which give you extra bonuses, which I haven't explained yet. I'm about to explain that in a moment. Or I can keep the Scarab and only gain 1 XP, and various rooms and abilities and such require you to use a Scarab to activate. And as I mentioned when I talked about these cards here, sometimes you can get bonuses. And the way those work is as you're playing these cards here, you'll see that there are these symbols. And if these symbols match, you get a bonus. Well, in this case, I have half shield and half mend, so I get nothing. But if I play this, not only do I get that ability, but now this is a wild. So now I will always have 1 shield if I'm in combat. And let's say I play this card in this slot later. Now in combat, I always have 1 shield and 1 sword, plus whatever I've unlocked down here, plus whatever I roll. The last thing I will say before I talk about one of the other phases is there are a whole bunch of characters, companions that you can purchase if you go to the right room. You're able to get them and place them down here, and not only will they give you an ability, they also give you a wild spot where you can place another card. However, once you have filled up all of your slots with cards, at the end of your turn, you'll activate the monster as always, and I have not told you how to activate the monster yet, and then you will trigger a Scarab phase. And what's going to happen on the Scarab phase is you're going to start up here at the entrance, and you're going to go around in this ring. And every place there's a Scarab, it's going to move out 1. So that would go to there, and this one would go to here. And this one would try to go to here, but you'll see there's a wall there, so it would go to here, and it would go clockwise and into the next one. Then you do the same thing for this next row down here. And this one can't go out, so it stays there. Then you would put a new Scarab in every room that doesn't have one down there, but then every room that has 2 Scarabs already in it will be blighted. Which means you can't use it unless you clear it out and then pay that cost right there. And then, as I mentioned, at the end of every turn that you have, which is only playing 1 card, that may have been a little confusing with how I described it earlier, then you will activate the Fae. And the Fae gets stronger and stronger based on the day. And as a reminder, the day is this track right here, and every time you play enough cards to where it goes all the way around, what will happen is you advance the day 1 spot, which changes all the pathways. And if you ever have to come back to 1, then you will have lost the game. And the monsters get stronger the longer into the game you go. So on days 10, 11, and 12, the Chaos Ogre has 5 red dice, 2 blue dice, and 2 black dice for its combat. Whereas on the first 4 days, he only has 1 blue, 1 red, and 2 black, so it behooves you to attack him sooner rather than later. And each of these monsters has different abilities. This particular one, he has 18 hit points, and as you hurt him, he winds up losing dice as he goes, but every time you clear out one of these spots, it activates an ability, like so. But the core of how they work is with this deck of cards that each one has. And it tells you on the back roughly what's going to happen. So when it's his turn to activate, it tells me here he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to move this 4 spots. Then, it's also telling me that this is going to be a permanent power for the Chaos Ogre. And we flip it over, and it tells us here, as long as we're in the calm green phase, nothing happens, but he'll start adding red dice as he goes, and those are permanent powers. It may be a movement, which is very simple. It will simply tell you where he's going to move to. A lot of times it will involve using these dice right here. In this case, it's a portal, and this is telling me it goes to the middle ring, spot 1, which is based off where the number is. Or it might be some kind of an attack. In this case, it would move it 5 spots, and then I would activate an attack, and it tells me exactly what it would do and how that works. I'll also note that for this particular Chaos Ogre, the more blight that there is in the game, the closer you are to being defeated. He gets stronger, and if you ever get to the end on the Chaos Ogre, you lose. So if there's ever 8 blighted rooms, you've lost. And he will also attack Lady Weirdwood, and if she's ever killed, you've also lost the game. But that's really how this game works. So what do I like about this game? The first thing is I really like the mechanics of the board itself and the way that integrates with the game and the story. So what I mean by that is I'm talking about the rotating board and how that's constantly changing the paths you take throughout the board, how the tiles, you put them on there, they flip up and down, but it's very easy to set them up just with the way the board's made. You just kind of drop them in there and they slide around. All that I think works really, really well. But what it does is it kind of suggests to me this magical manor that's always changing. Things are happening. This magic world is kind of bleeding into it back and forth, and it works really, really well. And along with that, I love the art of the game. I think the art is just beautiful. I'm enthralled by these characters that they have, by the world, all of it. Super, super fascinated by it. So much so that I know this game is somehow connected to this young adult book series. It makes me want to get that series and read it just so I can see what is going on with it. That's how much I like the way this game looks. I'm also a big fan of the way that the rotating board works mechanically, not just the way it changes the paths, but the further, depending on the card that you play, that's going to determine how far the day moves around, which of course is going to determine where you can go. But every time that ticks over to a new day, the big ring's going to move, which is again changing the paths, but getting closer to ending the game and making the big bad stronger. And to me, that is very, very clever because one, it has an end game. You get past 12 days, you've lost. But what it does is it makes this tension where you have to move. You can't wait. You can't dawdle, because if you're dawdling, the big bad's going to be able to beat you down because it's getting significantly stronger as you go. I really, really like that. However, at the same time, it also gives a very satisfying power up as you go, because as you're powering up, the little scarabs all over the place, they stop being a real danger to you because they're not going to hurt you. All they're going to do is gum up the works, which is why the scarab phase that happens every time you use all your cards is so terrifying. Not so much because it's going to blight things, though it might. Not so much because it's going to hurt you. It might, but probably not, as you're getting towards the end of the game. But because it's going to stop you from doing what you want to do, which is really eating into the one resource that you don't have a lot of, that is time. I really think that works very, very well. And then, as I said, I really like the card play. You don't have a lot of cards to choose from at any given time, so it kind of cuts down on your AP. But I love the different slots. So you're putting it in there, and that's going to change the shape of the board, but it's also unlocking these different abilities and bonuses that you're getting if you place the cards in the right place. Of course, placing cards in the right spot so you get those bonuses means that sometimes you're advancing the day further than you would like. So it's a very, very delicate puzzle that's right there. I also like that all of the different characters are very, very different with their powers, their decks, and all those things. I think that's just great. I love how different they are. Same thing with the bad guys. They're all very, very different, and they play very differently. It's a very different experience each time. So when you combine that with the rotating board, with the tiles being in slightly different places, it does create for a solid amount of replay. And then finally, I'll say, the prototype that I have is reminiscent of what the deluxe edition will be, i.e. has acrylic standees, has those 3D scarabs, and the prototype is very, very good. It's a very good prototype, so I'm very confident the production on this is going to be really good. Last thing I'm going to say here is my understanding is the size of the box that I have is pretty much going to be the size of the box for the final copy, which means this is a small box game, which is great for shipping and is great for shelf space. In fact, I think it can fit right up here in that spot. I don't know what goes up there. Something's supposed to be up there. I don't know. So all of that I think works really, really well. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first thing is I don't know that there might not be more downtime than you want if you're playing at 3+ players. And it's not for want of trying on the game's part, because you don't have a lot of options. You have between 1 and 6 cards, depending on how healthy you are. And at any given time, you can place those cards between 1 and 6 places, probably, if you have a lot of companions. At the same time, some of those spots you're not really going to want to put them because it's going to advance the day very far. And each of the different cards are relatively specific. So you don't have, even though it might look like you have a lot of options, you don't have a lot of options. But still, there definitely can be times when you're stopping and thinking and you're trying to puzzle out what you want to do. And if you're playing 3 or 4 players, it might feel like it's a long time in between. I think this game works fantastically at 1 and 2. Fantastically. But just something for you to keep in mind. Next thing I'll say is I do wish that the level up tracks at the bottom of each board, I wish they were differentiated like the characters were, because the character differentiation is so, so good, but the bottom tracks I believe are all exactly the same. I wish they were a little bit more varied. Next thing is I've talked about how much I love the card art, or all of the art. And right now the artwork on the unique character cards are all the same. And I'm hoping that maybe as a stretch goal or something, maybe it'll be unlocked where you have different card art as you kind of go down that path, so it'd be a little more unique, because it's just such good art. It's so, so good, and I really want to see more of it. And then the last thing I'm going to say is, for me, I did not find the game hard. And that's not to say I didn't think it was hard, because fighting most of the bad guys, as I was getting through it, and if I had questions, I would send messages to the designer. And in all of them, I was like, oh my gosh, this is impossible, I can't win. And then I would always win. And it might just be that I'm good at this style of game now, because I do like this crisis management style game. And it might just be it's in my wheelhouse. I don't know. And I do know that Michael Kelly from One Stop Co-op Shop, he found the game significantly harder than I did, which is very weird. Usually it's the other way around. He finds things easy. But I didn't find it to be that hard. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, because I know the loudest people in co-ops like to say, oh, I like to win like 10% of the time. I'm not like that. I like to win over 50% of the time, because otherwise I feel like I wasted my time. And I feel like most people like to win more than they like to lose. But I think this is a game that you're going to find that you are going to win more than you lose. And I'm sure that there are ways and variants that can up the difficulty, but for me, I did not find it to be that hard, though I did like it a lot. So there you have it, folks. That is Weirdwood Manor. I think in the world of crisis management games not named Pandemic, I think this is up there. It's not done yet, so I don't know for sure, but it's potentially up there in that top 10 for me. Well, I'm not going to try to narrow it down more than that, because I've only played this game a few times, but definitely up in that top 10 for me. I think it's fun to look at, it's fun to play, it's engaging, it's intriguing, it's a little bit easy for me, but that's it. I'm so intrigued by this. I want to go check out this young adult story series, or what, I don't know if I assume the stories came first in the game. I don't know. They told me at Gen Con, but I don't remember. But now I want to go find out. And for a game that makes me want to go read the books, that is awesome. So there you have it, folks. That is Weirdwood Manor. Should be on Kickstarter next week if it's not up already. I like it. I think if you like crisis management style games, co-op, great art, you're welcome. Here you are. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, and join. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.